today I'm going to give you 6 ways to the path, the step-by-step guidance to take ultimate revenge on narcissists. You don't want to fight or argue with narcissists. You're going to do this instead, because if you fight or argue with them, they're going to fight or argue back. You know how you push against something, they push back against you. And when you're doing that, they actually enjoy it. That's what they want you to do. That's exactly what they want. They're like, hey, now we're having a conversation. Now you're giving me what I want. You're giving them food, lifeblood, oxygen. That does not give them revenge. So, my slay methodology has actually helped people break free. It's strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focusing on you. And so those are the things that you're going to want to be able to do. I always tell people, step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. And step 3, break free, because you're really kind of shifting the dynamic. You're shifting the power dynamic, because what's happened is they started off love bombing you. They started off, conditioning. That's what love bombing really is. It's really a misnomer, because they really are conditioning you from the beginning to see, are they going to be a good source of supply for me? So what you want to do is you want to stop that conditioning. So step 1, don't run. Stop that conditioning. Stop the bleeding. So you don't argue or fight with them anymore, because they're going to always be right and you're going to always be wrong. Right now, you're in this constant losing battle. You're never going to convince them that what your position is correct. You're never going to get them to go, oh, you know what? You have a point there. You're never going to get them to come to that kind of thinking. You're never going to get them to acknowledge you, even if it was a business relationship, because I was in a business relationship with a narcissist. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I contributed so much to this situation, so much to this relationship, or so much. How do they not see that? They're not. And if you think that you're going to give a lot in the negotiations at the beginning, and that's going to garner some sort of favor, and they're going to see how fair you're being and acknowledge that in some way, they won't. The faulty premise that people go into these situations with is that you try to overlay reason to a person who's unable to see reason. They just literally are unable. So if you really want to take the ultimate revenge on a narcissist, don't fight back. Don't try to argue. It just makes them more aggressive. Number 2 is you need to set boundaries. You need to stick to them. And that's going to be really, really hard, because they don't want you to stick to your boundaries. They want to maintain control, because you are a source of narcissistic supply for them. So you're going to need some ways to disarm that narcissist. So I have a free resource for you. It's my free 15 key phrases to disarm narcissists. I would go grab that now. You can get that at disarmthenarc.com. Just go to disarmthenarc.com. It's a free resource for you. You can use that to write emails, write text messages when you're speaking to them, if you're responding, because they're going to light you up like a Christmas tree with all of their flooding, trying to get that supply source back under control. But that's okay, because it's like a 2-year-old having a tantrum on the floor. You just have to realize that that's what's going on, and you're just going to observe it. So that goes into my number 3. So number 3 is, don't give them the attention that they crave. Don't give them that satisfaction of knowing that they've upset you. Ignore them as much as possible. Kind of got to be like, la, 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 la. Just look at the floor. Look, have other things that you're going to be prepared to do, to look at. Write the book that you've always wanted to write, start your new projects, move on, have other things that you can start to pivot to, because you're just going to want to know that you've got other things that you're going to start to think about, because You do not want to fall into the trap of giving them the satisfaction of knowing that they've upset you. You want to ignore them as much as possible. Once you've set those boundaries, you need to stick to them no matter how hard it is. And there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, obviously, if you go give them that attention again, you're back into the cycle, you're back into it. And they know there's that supply source. And as long as they know that they can get that supply source, they're never going to leave you alone. They're also going to try to bait you into doing certain things, try to upset you, try to get a reaction out of you. And if they do that, they're going to use that reaction against you, and you're never going to be able to heal. As long as you keep exposing yourself to that toxicity, you're never going to be able to heal. So number 4 is, you have to start taking time for yourself. And then that really is how you start to take ultimate revenge on a narcissist. Once you don't fight back, once you don't argue with them, that's really how you start taking the ultimate revenge on that narcissist. Because once you start to be happy, once you start to have your own life and you're not feeding them anymore, that's really what disempowers them. So start to make yourself happy, start to find your own interests, start to have your own source. You'll start to breathe, you'll start to realize you don't need this person anymore. So that's number 4. Number 5 is start documenting everything that narcissist does and says. Have a notes file in your phone, have some way that you can document in real time. And if you can start organizing it, even better. So, I like to organize it by the statute. If you think that there's going to be some sort of a legal case, figure out what statutes are going to be applying to your particular case and organize it by the elements of that statute. That's the best way to do it. But if you're not going to have a legal case, then find some other way to organize it. Summary of lies and inconsistent statements, summary of times that they didn't show up on time, summary of times they didn't pay the bill on time. Whatever it is, try to find some pattern of something where you're documenting everything the narcissist does and says, but whether it's the phone calls, whether it's the emails, whether it's the text messages, the faster you can figure out a way to have things organized, the better it's going to be for you. If you can figure out some way that you can find something by words, by keywords, even better. If you can create a timeline, that's even better. Some way that you can start organizing and documenting everything the narcissist does and says, it will make your life so much easier, because it will start to become voluminous, I promise you. And they will give you lots and lots of material, but this will become your leverage. So when you're doing your SLAY methodology, strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focusing on you, this will start to become your magic bullet leverage, which you will incorporate into your strategy, and it will definitely work for you, I promise. Number 6 is you are going to get support, and you're going to get support from a number of different ways. I want you to get support from people who have been through this before. I want you to get support from a network of friends. I want you to get support from a network of maybe family members. Seek professional help if possible. So if you don't have access to therapy, we do have a sponsor on this channel, which is BetterHelp. So you can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung. We do receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to services that you can trust. We also have a Facebook group. I have a Facebook group that you can have access to, which is totally free, which is Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And I also have an inner circle, which you are welcome to join, which is my slayinnercircle.com. And I want you to have access to the help and support that you need. It is so important for you to have a network of friends and family and professional resources that you can count on, that you know that you can trust. because you are going to need that, especially when you are dealing with narcissists. But that is how you take the ultimate revenge on narcissists. You do not fight or argue with them. Instead, you get revenge by doing these 6 things. And I know you're probably here because you are exhausted. Maybe you're feeling defeated. Maybe you're feeling frustrated because you're being pulled into these pointless word salad conversations that are really just arguments with a narcissist. Even if you're trying to have a normal conversation, they pull you into this vortex of craziness because they get narcissistic supply from it. It's not about solving or resolving anything. It's about how much can they keep control over you. So they do that by taking you in these circles. They don't even necessarily argue to win. It's to maintain control and let you know that you're not going to. But they want to keep you drawn into that craziness, that drama, trauma, and chaos. So today I'm going to show you exactly what to do instead of arguing so that you can stop playing their game and start reclaiming your power. So before we get started, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you never miss a video on how to take control and slay in any high conflict situation. If you found this content likable or something that's useful for you, make sure you also like it and share it with your community. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the big truth. Arguing with a narcissist is a losing battle. You will constantly be drawn and sucked into this craziness. So you can't argue with a narcissist. They're looking to confuse you, they're looking to manipulate you and maintain control. So how do you deal with them? What can you do instead that actually works? So I'm going to share several specific strategies you can use today, both in your personal life and in your professional life. So the thing you really want to stop doing immediately is stop trying to prove your point. Narcissists are not interested in logic. They're not interested in facts or fairness. They're masters of deflection, projection, lying and denying. They're going to turn the conversation into a chaotic loop where nothing gets resolved. It's like you trying to catch a wave and pin it down. The more you try to prove your point or get them to acknowledge you, see your side, involved in a regular person discussion, the more they're going to twist, the more they're going to deflect, the more it's going to be frustrating for you. So instead of engaging in that back and forth, stop right now trying to convince them of anything. Expect them to be narcissists. Expect them to do the things that they're going to do. I had a client call me one time and said, can you believe that my soon-to-be ex did this and did that and all of these things? And I remember saying to her, yes, I can believe it. What I can't believe is that you can't believe it because you've been telling me for years that this is exactly how he is. So stop trying to convince them of anything and stop being surprised by their behavior because they're going to be who they are, which is their narky selves. So you just look at them and go, well, there they are again, being their narky selves. If you're dealing with a narcissistic spouse or family member and you're arguing about something as simple as like where to spend the holidays, no matter how many logical reasons you're going to present, they're not going to listen. They will refuse to listen. And in fact, they're going to go to whatever the opposite is, whatever your position is, they're going to be against it no matter what. Even if they wanted that, they're going to be against it because it's you said it, because you said it. So the goal is to assert your decision without getting caught in their web of manipulation. This approach works with a narcissistic boss, a narcissistic colleague, somebody who's on your team at work. It could be even a client. If they're trying to undermine you, they're trying to respond with something, saying something that's provocative, that's trying to provoke you. They're not going to listen to facts. They want to evoke an emotional response from you. They want to trigger you. They want to bait you. So you can just say something like, this is the decision we've agreed on. I'm sticking to it. And you don't need to have any kind of guilt, any kind of shame, any kind of feeling bad about it. You just stick with it and stay non-emotional about it. Narcissists have a confession to make, and that is that they are way more afraid of you than you are of them, especially in court cases, mediation cases, or any kind of cases where you have to negotiate with them. But you know what? I have a confession to make too. I'm sick and tired of these people bullying you and making you feel exhausted and paying way too much in attorney's fees and dragging you through the mud. My name is Rebecca Zung, and I'm an attorney. I've been recognized by U.S. News as one of the best lawyers in America. And in fact, I was so sick and tired of these people bullying you that I started studying narcissism so that I could beat them in the courtroom. And now I'm here to make the case so that you can win too. I developed a 4-part proven blueprint that has helped tens of thousands of people take back their freedom, win, and get back their power. And now I'm sharing it with you in a special live event, Outsmart the Narcissist, the 4-part proven plan to take back your power. 4 simple steps, 1 free live event, 1 free hour of your life. That's what stands between you being in hell and you being free. Join me, click the link for Outsmart the Narcissist, the 4-step proven plan to take back your power. Just click the link and let's go. One of the things I'm going to say to do this instead is the gray rock method. And the gray rock method means that you just become like a gray rock. You just as non-emotional as possible. Remember, they thrive on emotional reactions. So the more you get upset, the more you get defensive, the more you get angry, that's where they know they have you. So what do? Gray rock means uninteresting, unemotional. When you're interacting with them, you're like putting this invisible shield down around you. And you're saying, I'm like Teflon over here. Anything is going to just roll right off of me. And they're not going to get the emotional reaction that they're looking for. And eventually they just get bored and they move on. So if you're at work and you've got a narcissistic coworker who's constantly trying to push your buttons, criticizing you in front of other people, maybe they're trying to take credit for your work or they're just passive aggressive, instead of reacting, you can calmly state something like, oh, I see, and then move on with your tasks. They eventually realize they can't manipulate you. And that's really going to be the thing that frustrates them. So they just move on because they need to find a source of supply. They're like drug addicts. So, whatever they can do to get that hit, they're going to look for that. Same thing in your home life, in your personal life. If they're trying to bait you, trigger you, bring you into their vortex of insanity, then we can have this conversation when you're calm or whatever. You don't need to be drawn in, sucked in, dragged into the mud of vortex of insanity. The next thing I'm going to tell you to do is set very, very clear boundaries. They're going to try to push your buttons, and you've got to say, I'm putting this invisible shield down around myself, and then enforce those boundaries, enforce the consequences when they're crossed. So if you told a narcissistic ex not to contact you outside of certain scheduled times, and they keep calling or texting at all hours, instead of arguing every time, just calmly remind them of the boundary and then enforce the consequences. If you continue to contact me outside of our agreed time, I'm not going to respond to you. And further action could be taken. I mean, if you've got an agreement, which is what I highly recommend, have very specific terms in that agreement. And if you're in a professional setting and you've got a colleague or a boss or somebody who's trying to push you into doing things that are unreasonable or saying things that are unreasonable or engaging in actions, you just calmly state, I'm not going to participate in that. Enjoy yourself. Thank you. It doesn't have to penetrate to you. It's all about how it's landing for you. So you can make a decision to say, you know what, I'm not participating in that conversation, in that action, whatever it is. and not feel guilty, not feel worried, don't have anxiety over it, because it's like choose your hard. If it's hard to say no to them now, it's much harder down on the other side when it comes back to backlash you, where you continue the process of going along to get along. I've been exactly where you are in that. It seems way harder now, but it's much harder on the back end. If you get this, I want you to put "I get it" in the comments below. I get it. Narcissists love to play with emotions. They don't want to argue with facts. They want to argue with emotions. They want to be personal. They want to attack you personally. When you take the emotion out of the conversation and say, we're going to stick to the facts here. We're going to stick to the issues here. We're not going to talk about, anything personal, and we're not going to get personal, and we're not going to use insults or put downs. We're going to talk about the facts. It's very much more frustrating for them. Keep everything documented. That's the other thing I want to say to you. You keep everything documented, every interaction, every conversation. Either you're writing it down, or you're confirming it with them, or you are using a vehicle that you can use for documentation. I highly recommend email or a court-approved parenting app, because they have a time and date stamp, and they're the least likely to be manipulated. So they're great for documentation. If you want more information on how to document properly, and you want to make sure that you are documenting all the right things, then get my free cheat sheet on it on Doc the Narc. So you can go to docthenarc.com and get that for yourself. I'm curious, what is your experience in engaging or arguing with a narcissist? Make sure that you never jade, never justify, argue, defend, or explain. I always say I always wear jade because I'm half Chinese, but I never jade, because you're never going to convince them of anything. So stop trying. And, just drop a comment below on what has worked for you as well. I'd love to hear from you. Let's talk about how to take the ultimate revenge on narcissists. So number one is don't get triggered. I just had a conversation with my husband this morning. So it's very fresh in my mind, because we have a family member who is a narcissist, who's just constantly trying to do things to trigger. And so it's a constant test. They are always testing, they're always looking to try to trigger you. And if you can really learn how to not get triggered, that is such a great way to take revenge on them, because that is what they want. They want that supply. They enjoy watching you get triggered. They get supply from that. They actually get a high from that. I know it's sick. I know it's twisted. It's really disgusting. It's kind of gross. It is just what it is. I mean, I remember somebody that we knew was a narcissist, my husband and I, and this guy would go, "Oh yeah, now we're having a conversation. Now we're getting somewhere." Yeah, he actually would enjoy when somebody would get upset, or somebody would even start to get emotional. He would actually enjoy that. He would think, now we're getting somewhere. But that's how it is with them. So number one is don't get triggered. Number two is closely related, but it's even a little bit further. And so number two is don't take the bait. Don't actually just not only don't get triggered, but don't even go there. Don't get into that conversation. Not only don't get triggered, but don't get into the mud. Don't get down and dirty with them, because when you do that, that's when you are potentially giving them fodder, giving them evidence, giving them potential trial exhibits, doing all sorts of things that could potentially get you into trouble that they can potentially use against you. Because remember, when you are litigating with a narcissist, it's almost like getting arrested. Anything you do or say could potentially be used against you. Remember that. And remember, anything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit. So that's number two. Number three is stand your ground on the offers. So important. You know, they're really used to getting their way with you. Sometimes years conditioning you. You know, they knew how to condition you. They checked to see if you were going to be a good form of supply early on. They worked on you for a long time. They used the fact that you were a good person. They used the fact that you were an empathic person. You know, they did things where they checked to see if you were going to get, you know, say anything or do something about it. And then now here you are, and you're where you are at this point. By the way, don't beat yourself up over it. You are where you are. Wherever you are is the jumping off point. And wherever you are, you can turn it around. Now is where you turn it around. Now is where you shift the dynamics. So now is where you stand your ground. So number 3 is stand your ground. You made an offer in this negotiation. You stand your ground. And so number 4 is don't allow them to move the goalpost. This is one of the things they do often is they move goalposts in the negotiations. And why do they do that? They get narcissistic supply from it, number 1, and they enjoy the process of intimidating you. People think narcissists just want to win. That is such a huge myth. They don't just want to win. They also enjoy moving the goalposts. They enjoy intimidating you. They enjoy watching you squirm. That's why these cases last so long. That's why they cost so much money. That's why it's really, really important for you to develop a strategy, to develop leverage, to anticipate, to focus on you. That's my slay methodology. You have to slay. And if you agree with me, put slay in the comments right now. Slay. That is what you're going to do. You are going to slay. And if you want to know more about why narcissists move goalposts, check out my video called Why Narcissists Move Goalposts. All right, number 5 is grab the opportunity when they are hoovering. So many times when all of this is going down, all of a sudden they're going to be super nice. Oh, wow, what's going on? They're being so nice all of a sudden that they're hoovering. They're just going to try to see what's going on here. Let me try to be super nice. They start hoovering. Maybe that's an opportunity that you can get them to sign something. Grab that opportunity when you can. That's number 5. Number 6 is use your leverage. Use it strategically. Again, part of my slay strategy. So that's number 6. Number 7 is never let them get away with anything ever. You have court orders, they violate them, file that motion for contempt, motion to compel, whatever it is you need to do, file it right away. Number 7, that's really, really important. Number 8, get everything in writing. As soon as you get agreements, get it in writing or follow up, confirmation text, confirmation email, whatever you need to do, make sure it gets memorialized somehow. Because if you don't, it never happened. If it's not in writing, it never happened, especially with narcissists. You know what I'm saying is correct. Number 9, forgive yourself. Please forgive yourself. Whatever happened in the past. Narcissists are really, really good at what they do. They are absolutely the masters at manipulation. Super, super good at what they do. So charismatic, so eloquent, so good at reading people and understanding how to manipulate people. So just forgive yourself, move on. You now know you are woke, so you can only go from here forward, right? And now you know you'll never, ever be in this position ever again. And number 10, the ultimate revenge on narcissists always is walk away, don't look back. As I always say, wipe them from the CPU of your life. If you can do that, that is the ultimate revenge. If you can disappear them from your life, that is what they really, really don't want. And that is definitely the ultimate revenge. Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life. Then they turned out to be your worst nightmare. And then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell. Well, I developed something called the SLAY method of negotiating with narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized, high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I will show you how. So if you're dealing with a narcissist, be it a covert narcissist, a grandiose narcissist, or a malignant narcissist, they engage in all kinds of behaviors even while you are just in a relationship with them. They're gaslighting you, they're lying to you, they're manipulating you, perhaps even being abusive. More than likely they're being abusive. Some are sneakier at it than others. Covert narcissists in particular are very sneaky at it. And so if you are dealing with a covert narcissist, I have several videos on covert narcissists, including why covert narcissists are dangerous and the covert passive aggressive narcissist. And you're going to want to check out those videos for sure if you're dealing with covert narcissists. But whatever kind of narcissist you're dealing with, they are being their narcissist selves the entire time that you're in a relationship with them. So there are three phases to a narcissistic relationship. It's love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. And remember that the phases of the relationship don't actually happen in a linear fashion. They happen at the same time sometimes. They can be devaluing you while they're love bombing you. And in fact, there was a study done by a psychologist with monkeys that showed that if monkeys were given a reward for doing something good every single time, nothing happened in their brain. But if they were only given a reward intermittently, variably, where the monkeys couldn't predict when they were going to get this reward, the dopamine levels in their brain actually rose to the level of someone on cocaine. And that's what happens with a relationship with narcissists. They go back and forth. The narcissists go back and forth between love bombing and devaluing, and love bombing and devaluing. And so you are left with almost being addicted to, in a physiological way, to wanting their praise, to wanting that love bomb, because they start out so charming and they really try to set themselves up to be the perfect person for you and hold out all these things that they're going to do for you, or even do things for you right at that time. I mean, if you ever watched the Dirty John miniseries, you recall that guy was just setting himself to be up to be perfect for this successful single businesswoman. He was getting her dry cleaning and making smoothies for her in the morning and all these things at the same time that he was isolating her from her family and turning people against her. So they go through these phases of the relationship. So what happens when you are doing battle with a narcissist is they just become that same person, but on steroids. So it's so much worse. They turn up the heat because, unfortunately, for narcissists, you're either for them or you're against them. They need an endless amount of supply. And if you are cutting off that supply to them, then they just see you as the enemy. And for those of you who watch my videos on a regular basis, you know that I've had to work 2 covert narcissists out of my life, and it was not an easy thing. It wasn't husbands, but it was people that were close to me and close enough to do serious damage and cause lots and lots of trauma. And, I'm telling you that if it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. Narcissists have a symbiotic relationship with empaths. And, narcissists see that empaths have the qualities that they want. And empaths, we just think that we can love everybody back to health, and, that we have enough love to give. And it just ends up being this black hole. And so they literally, they're often called energy vampires or leeches or parasites or whatever, but they literally suck the life out of you. And it's almost like death by 1,000 cuts. And so when you go to do battle with a narcissist, they're literally um, turning up the heat, because now you're the enemy. Now you no longer have any value for them. So there's no, like, a reasonable person, those of us who are in reasonable land, we think, oh, we can just walk away and wish each other well, and we'll come up with an agreement that's reasonable. And hey, the law provides for certain things, and depending on what kind of battle you're doing with a narcissist. But you can't, that's not how it goes with a narcissist. So if you're getting ready to do battle, or you're in the trenches of doing battle with a narcissist, there are a few things that you can do to beat them at their own game and preserve your own sanity along the way. The first thing is, don't allow them to disrespect you. When you allow them to disrespect you, you're basically giving them permission to do that. And they know how to push your buttons, let me tell you. I mean, especially if you've been in a long-term relationship with this person, they've studied you, they know exactly what your weaknesses are. And so that's where they're going to go. They're going right there to try to make you look as bad as possible. Everything you say or do is going to be turned against you, used against you, twisted, manipulated. So what you're going to have to do is just maintain your own level of dignity, maintain your own level of respect, and demand respect from them. If they are screaming, yelling, trying to talk to you in a way that's overly emotional, and they're not in control, they want you to be out of control too, because they get supply, they get narcissistic supply by seeing you squirm. So by just maintaining that, hey, we're not going to have this conversation. You're not being respectful to me. This is not productive. We'll have this conversation when you can be respectful to me. Same thing if they are lighting you up in text messages or lighting you up in emails, and saying all sorts of disrespectful things. You can just simply respond and say, I disagree with what you're saying. Please do not speak to me that way. It is disrespectful. And, and then respond to the parts of it that you might have to respond to, like, what time are you picking up the kids or something like that. But other than that, you're not going to get into the trenches with them and sling that same sort of mud. You're going to demand respect from them, and you're going to condition them that this is how it's going to go. If they want you to interact with them, they're going to have to respect you. And it's going to drive them insane when you do that, believe me. Okay, the next thing that you can do is document, document, document. And we cannot say this enough, those of us who are in this field and professionals in this area. You just never know what's going to end up being your leverage. And when you're dealing with narcissists, you have to have a super strong strategy, and you have to be able to create leverage. And, I often hear people ask me, what is leverage? What does that look like? And leverage can be a smoking gun, like the one thing that for sure the narcissist doesn't want anyone to know. Or it could be something like that the narcissist is more motivated to resolve your differences than you are. Or it can be an accumulation of things. It can be, you know, 15 different text messages that show that they're a liar, or and you create an exhibit that shows that. It could be that they didn't show up for picking up the kids on time 20 times in a row, or they changed the schedule every single time that they were supposed to take the kids, or whatever. But, it could be any accumulation of those things. And so it's really, really important to do that documentation, even if it seems mundane. Just keep the app open on your phone, the Notes app, or there's apps where you can actually they pay, to have a documentation feature or whatever. But basically, you just don't really know what's going to be the pattern that you're going to be able to bring out, or what's going to be that leverage. And, for sure, the leverage is always going to be around what is their biggest motivation, which is, the one thing they don't want to come out. It's going to be around their ego, because the thing about narcissists is, they're just always in this mode of self-preservation. They're actually very easy to figure out. And narcissists are the most afraid, most scared little personalities on the planet. They have fragile egos because they have no sense of inner value. All of their value comes from the external. So when you are looking at your documentation and figuring out what your leverage is, you're going to want to think about what is their biggest motivation. What is it that they really don't want brought out? And what is it that's going to make them look bad? Because narcissists do not want to look bad, especially in front of people that they really respect. So if somebody is involved that they really respect, such as a mediator or other lawyers or the judge, especially the judge, they're not going to want to look bad. So document everything. Okay. You never know when you're going to need it. If this is all sounding really good to you so far, and you are so ready to start doing the things that I'm telling you to do, give me an amen in the comments. Okay, the third thing that you can do is figure out what kind of narcissist you're dealing with and understand what behaviors each one engages in. So some of it is similar. All narcissists engage in certain types of behaviors like gaslighting and manipulation, but they do it in subtly different ways depending on the type of narcissist that you're dealing with, whether it's covert, malignant, or grandiose. And you will want to brush up on the different types of narcissists so that you can figure out what kind you're dealing with, and then find out what behaviors they engage in. And once you do that, then you will expect it. You're going to go, oh, there's that person being that covert narky self. That's what they do. And you won't take it as personally, because you'll just understand that that's the way they act. Okay, so the third thing you can do is figure out what kind of narcissist you're dealing with, brush up on the types of behaviors associated with each narcissist, and then expect them to act like themselves. They don't change. Narcissists do not change. They can pretend like they know, they're very good at pretending. They do know what good behavior looks like. That's how they were able to rope you in the first place, and that's how they parade around the world and get people to think that they're so great. Especially covert narcissists are really, really good at that. But you're going to want to figure out what kind you're dealing with, and then not be surprised when they just act like themselves. Okay, the fourth thing is, when you are getting ready to ask for something from the narcissist, you're going to want to ask for way more than what you actually want. The narcissist is going to want to feel like they beat you, like they got to you, because they get supply from that. Their egos won't allow you to win, at least on paper. So if you are ready to just give them a certain amount, give away a certain amount that you control, that you decide ahead of time. I'm going to be willing to take this much, or I'll be willing to give up this thing, but act like it's like the one thing you definitely don't want to give up. Because if there's something that's super important to you, then that's the one thing that they're going to want to make sure that you don't get. So you kind of playing a game here, and I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator. But basically, you're going to want to give them um, certain things that you kind of decide ahead of time that you were willing to give, and then um, work back to what you actually want. And then when you get there, you have to act like, oh my God, I can't believe I had to give up so much, and this is just awful, and oh, you really took advantage of me and whatever. But you can just go home and smile and pour your champagne or whatever, and do it in the privacy of your own home after you've won the things that you wanted. And number 5, the last one is, I take it from like this old commercial, never let them see you sweat, but really, you never want to let them see you sweat, cry, get emotional, lose control. Then they get supply from that. If you need to, cry in the bathroom, and then come back out, splash water on your face. If you wear makeup and you're a female, whatever, put makeup back on. If you're a guy, just splash water in your face, comb your hair, whatever you need to do to just maintain control, and never let them see that they are getting under your skin. Because as soon as they see that, then they know they have you. If you know you're going to have to interact with them, you know, and let's say it's a school meeting or it's a mediation or something like that, don't get there too early, get there on time. Don't give them opportunities to grab you and try to manipulate you, because that's when they'll start to get under your skin again. Remember what I said at the beginning, these narcissists, they know how to push your buttons. So never let them see you sweat. All right.
I know so many of you want to talk about revenge against a narcissist, and they say, what is that? A revenge is a dish that's best served cold. Many times when I do these videos, like how to make a narcissist panic is like my number one, words that destroy a narcissist is like number two. Everybody wants to know how to destroy narcissists, how to make them panic, how to get revenge on that narcissist. And I can tell you all day how to expose a narcissist. In my Slay program, I got Slay the Bully over here, how to beat them in negotiations. That's what my whole Slay program is all about. I have a whole high conflict negotiation certification program. I can tell you all about that. But the true fact of the matter is that what does a narcissist want more than anything in the world? What do they want more than anything in the world? They want that supply, that almighty supply. That's the thing that drives them. They want to get something from you. So they're looking for supply, they're looking for services, they're looking for sex, they're looking for some kind of source from you, whether it's good or bad. So if you're not going to be providing adulation or money or services or sex or something good, or making them look good in some way, then they're going to want to manipulate you, or maybe both. Maybe they want both at the same time. They want to be able to manipulate you, put you down, gamesmanship, have you be that resource or source so that they can make themselves feel big by making you feel small. That's why in the negotiations, they want to be able to lead everybody around. And people say it's just about winning. It's not just about winning, because they enjoy the process of seeing everybody scurry around and squirm. What is the best revenge for a narcissist? It's you erasing them from their lives. And how do you get to that point? It's you living well. I mean, they say like that best revenge is a life well lived, or a life where you are completely broken free, where you are completely living well. It's where you are not even thinking about them. They're just nothing to you. I always say you wish them well, but over there, you're not thinking badly of them. You're not thinking anything. You're just like the Dalai Lama or whatever. You're just like, okay. I mean, I always think of it as Glinda the Good Witch at the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, when the Wicked Witch came flying around her. She said, "Go away. You have no power here." The Wicked Witch went, "Oh my God, I got to get away from her." She was like afraid of her. Good Witch was like, "Please." She just flicked her away, like, "Please, you have no power here." It was like a gnat flying around. That is truly the best revenge. I can tell you that, I mean, I had a client when she first came to see me in my office back when I was practicing law. She was scared and afraid and small and didn't wear makeup, and she was an older woman, and she had this short hair, and she was really at the effect of this guy that she was married to, and thinking that, you know, there was going to be backlash. And by the time she was done with her divorce, he was nothing. I mean, she was makeup and dating and fully in her power at that point, and out and about in the world and fully in her power. Longer hair, a completely different person. You wouldn't even recognize her. But that's what happens once you know who you are and you're standing in your authentic power, because you start to realize that they're more afraid of you than you are of them. You start to realize that backlash that you're afraid of is really not going to happen, or if it does, it's actually not as bad as you think it's going to be, or all the worst possible things that you imagine don't happen as badly as you think that they're going to happen, or all of those things. You start to realize that you can prepare yourself for them, that you can have a framework, that you can have prepared responses, you can have a plan, that there's all these things that you can do along the way that can allow yourself to be better. You can even prepare yourself emotionally. You can have breathing responses. You can have ways that you can be better, that you can go, you know what? I'm not going to be triggered by this person. And once you have that plan in place, then you can just start marching forward instead of being backward. You start turning it all around and go forward. That's the best revenge. The best revenge is just kind of wiping them from the CPU of your life. It's just the gnat flying around. And so if you're ready to go to that place, I have phrases for disarming narcissists at disarmthenarc.com. And I would start with those and join my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung, and make sure that you have subscribed to this channel. Subscribe here and hit that notification bell, and just make sure that you are prepared, because there is a process, there is a way to have what you want to do and be what you want to be and go where you want to go. You can manifest, you can be, do, and have whatever you want to have. Wherever you are is the jumping off point. There's no, "Oh my God, it's too late for me," and "Oh, they always get their way," and "Oh, you know, they always believe their lies," and all that sort of stuff. I would say, if you want to let them have that, okay. You want to be right about that? Or do you want to actually have your life? Because there are ways that you can combat that, and you can get your revenge. You can have your life. You can move on, and you can wish them well from over there. Just send them light from over there. Karma will take care of them. Karma will do their job. She never forgets. I always say karma never forgets. She's got a nice long memory. Let her do her job. You don't need to. You don't need to handle it. You move on. Do your thing. Live your life. Life is too short for you to be messing with that. All right. You take care of you. That's what I suggest that you do, and move on and handle you. That's what this is about. It's about you living a life of fulfillment instead of living a life of toxicity. And this is really going to be an inflammatory topic because this means that you are in the discard phase. This means that either you have said it's time or the narcissist has said that it's time. Because when it is danger time, that means that you're no longer in the love bomb phase. You're no longer even probably in that first stage of devaluation, which is where you go right after the love bomb phase. That means that you're really in that push pull phase. You're really in that phase of where that narcissist is feeling threatened. So, I want to tell you from my perspective as an attorney who has been in the trenches with all types of narcissists for a long time that it is really, really crucial to safeguard your well being. And if you think that you are in danger, make sure that you do whatever you need to do to protect yourself. Get to a place of safety, whether it is a local shelter for abused people, abused women, a local church, a local synagogue, or wherever it is. So let me just say that at the outset. Call the national hotline for domestic violence, whatever it is that you need to do to get yourself to a place of safety. So let me say that at the outset. Call the police, call 911. There is always something that you can do to get yourself to a place of safety. So let me say that at the outset. I am Rebecca Zung. I am an attorney. I've been recognized by US News as a best lawyer in America. I've also been a globally recognized narcissist negotiation expert. I have a best-selling book, Slay the Bully: How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And if you're new here, welcome. And I invite you to subscribe here and hit that notification bell. I release brand new videos every single day for you so that you can be empowered and get the help and support that you need. And we've built an amazing community here for people to get the help and support that they need. And it's for you. Signs that you are in danger: when a narcissist feels slighted, when a narcissist feels like they're going to be exposed, when a narcissist feels like their grip on their source of supply is slipping. Any of those things can potentially trigger something called narcissistic injury in their brain. And that means that that limbic part of their brain, that emotional center part of their brain, is going to be triggered. And that part of their brain takes over. Now they're no longer thinking with their prefrontal cortex. That thinking part of the brain is no longer in control. It's the limbic part of the brain that's now back in control. That emotional center, they're no longer in control, is what that means. They literally are unaware of the collateral damage that they're causing to themselves or others during that period of time. They are in a rage often. When that happens, it's like a flip of a switch. They will take themselves down to take you down. And that's the scary thing. They will go from black to white in the drop of a hat. You are either their friend or their enemy. You're either for me or against me. If you are into that discard phase, then you become public enemy number one. They feel that sense that they're being slighted. When they feel that sense that they're going to be exposed, when they feel that sense that the person is no longer with them, when they feel that sense that you are slipping away or you're no longer on their side, or that you might be leaving, or that there's something going on, then they're going to want to hit you before you can hit them. They're always vigilant. They're always watching you anyway. They're always looking to see what's going on with their source of supply. If they sense that there's something happening, then they will up their ante. Their efforts to control you are going to get higher, stronger, more intense. So if you start to see their behavior becoming more and more intense, their rage becoming more and more intense, their outbursts becoming more and more intense, the way they treat you, their attempts at controlling you becoming more, their surveillance of you becoming more. Where are you? What are you doing? I don't like this. Get over here. Get home. They're becoming more obsessed with what you're doing. These are all signs that something could be wrong, something maybe not be good. And if they are prone to not being stable in the first place, then you might want to have a conversation with a friend or a family member that says, maybe we need to have a safe word. Maybe we need to have a safe emoji that says, hey, when I send you the emoji that looks like party hat or whatever, there may not be a little party going on over here. Maybe you need to call 911 for me. They will hit you where it hurts. Legal attacks, financial attacks, attacks on your reputation, going after your friends, your family, your work. I've seen them tell people all sorts of things, that you're a child molester if you're not, depending on how malignant they are. They don't want you to have it. If you see a sudden change in their behavior, a sudden change in how they act, a sudden change in their demeanor, a sudden change in how they talk to you, sudden change in how they feel about you, the way they're treating you, it's not a good sign. Those are all bad signs, signs that you might be in danger. Threats, implicit or explicit, the way they might come at you. If they are lunging at you all of a sudden, that's a bad sign. If they're sending you text messages that say you better get home, or things aren't going to go well for you, things that they're saying that are trying to intimidate you to make you feel like you're feeling controlled or instill fear in you, that's not a good sign. If they start to install some kind of physical surveillance, you find trackers on your car, there's cameras installed in your home, not a good sign. All of these are signs that are not good. If they're trying to weaken your support system, isolating you from friends or family, those are also not good signs. If they actually do engage in some sort of domestic violence, it's obviously not a good sign. What can you do? Lean on trusted friends and family for support. Make sure people know what's going on. Document everything, whether it's a notes app in your phone in real time, you are keeping track in a journal, making sure you text, email, whatever you need to do, photographs, witnesses. Don't go places alone. Set firm and clear boundaries with the narcissist. Always demand a level of respect. Put that invisible shield down around you. If this is resonating for you so far, give me a yes, it is in the comments so far. If it's appropriate for you to start interviewing attorneys, then go ahead and start doing that. If that's the type of situation that you're in and that's something that you need to do, then go ahead and do that. Gathering financials, gathering a stash of cash if you need to. Those are all things that you might need to think about depending on your situation. Self-care is so important also. Taking care of yourself, taking time to breathe, educating yourself, getting knowledge, doing things like this, watching videos, right? Talking to the right people, getting information. Knowledge is power. They thrive on, you're never going to see your kids again. You're never going to do this. A lot of times it's just so much crap.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Investing in your mental health can feel like a big decision, but your peace of mind is just as essential as your physical well-being. Life brings challenges, from the anxiety of
stress to navigating high conflict relationships, and you really shouldn't have to face them alone. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, but with BetterHelp, you could save up to 50% per session on average. For a flat weekly fee, you get consistent quality care right from wherever you are. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and over 5 million people that have been helped worldwide, BetterHelp makes it easy to find support that fits your life, and you can switch therapists anytime. Therapy isn't just for moments of crisis, it's for building boundaries, learning tools, and becoming the most empowered version of yourself. Your well-being is so worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/negotiate to get 10% off your first month. Visit betterhelp.com/negotiate. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/negotiate.
So if you are dealing with that pesky, awful, toxic narcissist, and you are just at your wit's end and you're trying to figure out how to outsmart them, here are 5 secrets to outsmarting them. Number 1, agree with them. And I know what you're saying. What? Agree with them? They're crazy. They're pathological liars. They say anything they want to. They accuse me of stuff that's not true. I get it. I do. I've dealt with them. I've represented them. I've had them on the other side of my cases. Had to deal with them in my own life. So, I mean, nobody's immune. Narcissists are everywhere, right? But I'm talking about ways that you can bring them down, that because remember that a narcissist game is to manipulate you. I mean, you think it's to beat you, but it really isn't. Beating you isn't the outcome. There's really no outcome. They don't really have a goal or an outcome. Their outcome is just manipulating you, messing with you, making themselves look as good as possible. And the only way that they can make themselves look good is by putting you down. And so if you steal their thunder, if you take their ammunition away, then they don't know what to do with that. So you just say, if they say to you, you're always late, just say, you know what, you're right. I'm always late. And they're gonna, bristle at that at first. Oh, you're being, you're talking down to me, condescending, whatever. They can say whatever you want. Just say, no, I'm always late. That's what you say. I'm always late. And you're not saying it be careful not to say it in a way that's sarcastic, or where they can tell that they're getting to you, because the whole purpose of this is to just show them that you're not affected, that you're completely nonplussed by what they're saying and how they're saying it. That's their perspective. You're always late, whatever. And they'll be thrown off their game with that. Okay. Now, the one little caveat I will say is, if you're going to court with a narcissist, you definitely don't want to say this like in a deposition or in court or something like that. I mean, this is where you're just having a conversation with this other person, and you're just coming up with ways to outsmart them and kind of beat them at their own game. So by them trying to manipulate you by getting a rise out of you and you just saying you're right, it stuns them. They're not quite sure what to do with that. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is the ear method. This comes from Bill Eddy, who's an author, an attorney, and a psychologist, and he's written books like Splitting and Biff and The 5 Types of People That'll Ruin Your Life. And he says you use ear statements. And this is especially true if you've got somebody who's just completely out of control and just losing their mind on you. You show empathy, attention, and respect. Ear. EAR. And I know what you're thinking. You don't want to show them empathy, attention, or respect because you don't empathize with them. You don't want to give them attention, and you certainly don't respect them. I get it. This is to outsmart the narcissist, remember? So, if you act the way the narcissist expects you to act, then they know they have you. If you act in a way that they don't expect you to act, just like in number 1, where we said just agree with them, This is where you're giving them a little bit of attention. And remember, that's what the narcissist wants. They want attention. So you're just giving them just enough to say, I see that you're upset. Um, it must be difficult to travel or whatever it is that you want to say to them, but you're just saying it without emotion. Just show them a little bit of empathy, attention, and respect. And if you're dealing with a narcissist in your life, just put yes in the comments. Okay, number 3 thing you can do is figure out leverage against them. Even if you're not negotiating with them in a formal sense, figuring out a way that you can gather around them and find their inconsistencies and figure out what it is that they're saying that they're lying about, catch them in their lies. Now, what I want you to do when you're doing this, though, is not show them right away what you've got, because if you're showing it to them real time, then they're constantly out gaming you, which they're very good at. I mean, narcissists are master manipulators, especially covert narcissists. Covert narcissists are great at looking really, really wonderful to 99% of the world. I know I've had to deal with them myself. And if you want to know more about covert narcissists, make sure that you check out my video on covert narcissism in relationships. And I will definitely drop a link to that video below. But in the meantime, while you're gathering leverage and you're gathering motivation for them to want to have a conversation with you or do what you want them to do, you're just gathering, and you're waiting to use that leverage at a time that is most opportune for you. And that the time that you're going to use that is when you have them fully surrounded and there's no, it's like airtight. It's like soldiers that are surrounding a city or something like that. There's no escaping, because that's when they go crazy and their true colors really show through, which again is more leverage that you'll be able to potentially use down the road. Okay, number 4 is throw them off the scent. So what I mean by this is don't show a narcissist what you really want, because the minute you tell them what it is that you definitely don't want or you definitely do want, then that's the thing that they're going to do whatever they can to make sure you don't get it. Because if you're trying to outsmart a narcissist here, you don't show your hand, you don't show what it is that you want, you throw them off the scent. You act like nonchalant about the thing that you really want the most, and then the thing that you don't care about, you act like that's the most important thing ever. And especially if you're negotiating with a narcissist, this is very, very critical. I have a video on how to negotiate with a narcissist, and I will drop a link to that below. Check that out if you're trying to negotiate with a narcissist. But regardless if you're trying to negotiate or not, you're still in a negotiation if you're having to deal with this narcissist. So don't show them what it is that means the most to you, because that's what they will then target. Because then in the end, if you end up with what you want, who really cares if they knew that that was what you want? And if they think that you didn't get what you wanted, act like, oh my gosh, this was just horrible or whatever. And then, when you go back to your house or you go back to your room or whatever, you can just be like Dr. Evil and squeal and bah, ha, 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 and you got what you wanted. So who really cares if he or she knew that you got what you wanted? Okay. And number 5 has nothing to do with the narcissist at all. It has everything to do with you. And in my book, Negotiate Like You Matter, and in my programs, those of you who've worked with me or those of you who've read my book, that the most important thing is your internal feeling of value. So you focus on your own power, you focus on your own value and your own internal feeling of value. Remember that narcissists have no internal feeling of value. They get all their feeling of any sort of value from the external. And the more you can just be that oak tree and that you can just stand in your power, the less the narcissist will get to you. And that is really the best way to outsmart that narcissist. I definitely would try to get that narcissist out of your world if you possibly can. I always say, show them the door to your world. Have a nice life. But obviously, if you're co-parenting with a narcissist, and you're still going to have to have them in your world, do something like parallel parenting, something where you don't have to deal with them on a regular basis. The one hack to beat narcissists, and let me tell you this, everyone else is telling you that negotiating with narcissists is a total waste of time, that you can't win. I know, I've heard it too. And I used to feel that way too. Ugh, that person's a narcissist. They come in, they take over. And I've seen it. I've seen it in mediations. I've seen the worst of them. Before I knew how to deal with them, I've seen the worst of them. I mean, I'm thinking about this one guy who came into a mediation, throwing things. I'm not settling. I'm not doing anything. You're doing this. You're doing that before we even start. This is how it's going to go. And they take over. This is the way it's happening. And so everyone else is telling you there's no way it's happening. You can't negotiate with narcissists. You can't communicate with narcissists. It's a total waste of time. So why bother? Why bother? But you know what? That's terrorist tactics. That's terrorist tactics. So what? We're all supposed to just scurry around and give in? The problem with that is that you're feeding a beast. They're never going to be happy, because then what? You think, what is it that they want? I'll just give it to them and then they'll leave me alone. Have you tried that tactic? Do you see how it goes? Do you know where it gets you? Nowhere. In fact, it's worse than nowhere. You end up in torture because they still don't give you what you want. You're not left alone. Your life is worse than ever. You're in this nightmare that never ends. And you're still living in fear. You're still being tortured constantly. And you think, why am I not out of this nightmare? Why am I not out of this nightmare? And I'm going to explain to you why the nightmare has not ended, why you can't get out of it, why it's not over, because you don't understand what's actually going on. Yes, they want to win, but that's not all they want. You have to understand the concept of narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is anything that feeds a narcissist ego. And they want two different forms of narcissistic supply. There's what I refer to as diamond level supply, which is how they look to the world, which is prestigious friends, great houses, lots of money. It's that external stuff. Right? But there's also what I refer to as coal level supply, which is the dark underbelly of narcissistic supply. It's that degrading, the manipulating, the controlling, the debasing others. It's that denigrating. That is also a form of narcissistic supply. And that form of narcissistic supply is a form that they also love, that manipulating other people. And they're not going to willingly give up either form of supply, either form. They want both. And the problem that most people have is they don't understand that. They're just thinking they want to win. So they think, what is it that they want? I'll just give it to them and they'll leave me alone. So there's this huge myth out there that narcissists just want to win. What is it that they want? I'll just give it to them and they'll leave me alone. That beast will be fed. I'll be out of here. Let me go. Right. And so what happens a lot of times is that people give up their leverage early on and they think, okay, I'll show the narcissist how good I'm being, how generous I am. I'll give them this, this, and this. The narcissist just takes it. Take. They think they're entitled to it anyway, so they don't think that you're being generous. They're just great. I was entitled to it anyway. So you didn't give me anything that was wonderful. They don't acknowledge it and go, "Oh, thank you. That was so nice of you." Well, that was mine anyway. I should have had it. So you just gave something up. You gave up leverage that you should have kept in the first place. So now you're even more behind and you're still nowhere. They're still in your face, annoying you, manipulating you, harassing you, making your life miserable because they enjoy the process of seeing you squirm. They literally get off on that. The problem is the one hack to be narcissist is you have to understand that they're actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. So the more powerful that you become, the more that you understand that the less triggered you are, the more you shift that power dynamic, the less that they're going to have power over you. And that's the hack to beat narcissists. So step one, don't run. Step two, make a U-turn. Step three, break free. That's how you shift that power dynamic, by ignoring them and becoming the most powerful version of yourself. So it's my SLAY methodology: strategy, leverage, anticipate what they're going to do, be two steps ahead of them, and then focus on you, your case, you being on the offensive, your mindset. 99% of winning, communicating with narcissists, any of that is focusing on your side of things, and winning is you showing up as the most powerful version of yourself. And then that is when the narcissist is going to go, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? I can't make them squirm anymore. They're not afraid of me anymore. Now I'm getting afraid. Now I'm nervous. What's happening? Is when you start shutting down that supply source, all the supply sources, that is how you beat them. That is how they start to get nervous. They don't know what to do with that. It's literally like that Wizard of Oz, where you're pulling that curtain away from the feeble little man who's actually running the thing. You're figuring it out. So step one, don't run. Step two, make a U-turn. Step three, break free. Listen, I'm going to tell you this. There will always be narcissists in this world. They will always be toxic. The one that you're dealing with right now is the one that you're dealing with right now. But there's always going to be more that come along. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. There's 15% of the population. I mean, chances are there's going to be more. So the best way to handle them is for you to become the most powerful version of yourself, and for you to realize that deep inside of your soul that you were meant for more, that you were meant to step inside your power and live to what God and the universe is creating for you to be, which is the highest intentions for your soul, and live to that, because then no one can come near you. No narcissist can come near you then. No one can come near you. You're like an oak tree that just stands. And when the wind blows, you're not blowing with it, because they don't define your worth. No one has the power to define your worth. You know, you can negotiate contracts, you can negotiate terms. What's not negotiable is your self-worth, is your self-respect. Those are the terms that are not negotiable.
Let's dive further into this idea of unintentional gaslighting. So, unintentional gaslighting can manifest itself in a lot of subtle different ways. It can be in a way that dismissing somebody's feelings, disrespecting somebody's feelings, or discounting or invalidating somebody's feelings or experiences in a way that's not intentional, just like what it sounds like, right? But it's still damaging. It's still causing an impact to the other person. And while the intent might not be malicious, the impact can be just as equally as damaging. So here are some examples. Some examples can be toxic positivity. And what's toxic positivity? Toxic positivity can be you're overly positive, you're generally positive, even though the situation doesn't call for that. So like, if somebody's feeling really depressed or really down, and the person that they're telling this to says, well, everything happens for a reason, or hey, it could be worse. And then the person doesn't really feel validated. The person doesn't really feel heard. They got this like sort of platitude response instead of somebody who like actually heard them, or somebody just responds like, stay positive, you'll get over it, or just look on the bright sides, look at all the other good things that you got to have. They're not feeling like they got heard, they got acknowledged, they got to somebody to kind of sit with them. There's sort of a difference between somebody who just wants to sit in toxicity with a person all the time, somebody who wants to do that for a period of time with you, but then also at least enough to be hearing you, acknowledging you, and seeing the colors of your emotion and the spectrum of your emotion, and being there with you, and then pulling you out of that, right? I did a whole video on toxic positivity, by the way, which you can definitely check out. That unintentional gaslighting can be that. So that's an example of that. And what can you do instead? You can say, I hear you, I see you, your feelings are valid, and I'm sorry you're going through this, and giving them positive reinforcement that you're hearing them, powerful phrases, and acknowledging their emotions and validating their experiences, instead of just keep the faith, or something like that. Or another example of unintentional gaslighting might be something like, you're overreacting, or it's all in your head, or you're too sensitive. Sometimes it's definitely a narcissist who's saying things like that, right? Like, because they're saying things to be hurtful to a person. But sometimes maybe people don't realize the depths of the situation, or what's going on in a situation, and they're not realizing what's happening. And so they're saying these things to a person like, hey, come on, you're overreacting. And they're not understanding that a person isn't overreacting. They're not understanding that it isn't in a person's head. They are ending up gaslighting a person because they're not allowing a person to feel heard. They're not allowing a person to feel like their feelings matter. They're not allowing a person to feel acknowledged. And that's what this is about. When a person feels like they're not being acknowledged, when a person feels like they're not being heard, then they feel gaslit. Definitely not malicious. It might definitely be unintentional. When it comes through, it can be, as I said, just as damaging when that happens. That's another example of unintentional gaslighting. Anytime somebody is disregarding another person's opinions, that is an example of unintentional gaslighting. Another example of unintentional gaslighting might be just speaking in absolutes. You always do this, or you never do this. Again, that's just kind of generalizing a person and putting them in a massive category that doesn't look to a whole person. When you do that, nobody is ever an always person or a never person. A lot of times these exaggerations are born out of frustration. A lot of times it's a form of gaslighting. Telling white lies can sometimes be a form of gaslighting. Sometimes you don't want to hurt a person's feelings, so you might say, oh, the party was boring. It can invalidate a person's feelings. Refusing to admit that their own memory is wrong, even if they're presented with evidence. I have seen this happen in court. I have seen this happen with attorneys themselves. They're just super stubborn. That's a form of gaslighting as well. What are the impacts of unintentional gaslighting? Increased distrust in a person, less willingness to confide in a person, a decreased relationship satisfaction, increased risk for depression, increased problems in relationships, decreased worthiness in a person. I mean, all sorts of things, right? How do you respond to unintentional gaslighting? Call the person out on their behavior. Let them know this didn't feel good to me. I think that there's an issue here. This wasn't helpful. I think that this wasn't truthful. I think that this was hurtful to me. Focus on your truth. If you know that something wasn't truthful, let them know, and know when it's your time to not be in a particular relationship anymore. Know when it's time for you to put your boundaries up, or just say, hey, maybe this is a relationship that needs to be, at level 2 or level 3 or level 4, like it, not so close to you anymore. Ask questions or consider the intent of a particular relationship, right? And be aware of your own language too. Maybe you have to take a look at your own behaviors sometimes and try not to unintentionally gaslight yourself. And also making sure that you are speaking in a way that is in integrity. I want to share a story from one of my clients who implemented these strategies in her workplace. She was constantly belittled by one of her colleagues who undermined her contributions and was dismissed by that colleague, and her ideas were being dismissed. And instead of retaliating or internalizing the negativity, she started using these validating techniques, something that I taught in my high conflict negotiation certification training. She says, Rebecca's advice truly transformed my interactions by validating my own experiences and calmly addressing the behavior. I reclaimed my confidence and gained respect in the workplace. So that's the kind of thing that you can do. Validation is a powerful tool for building trust and fostering healthy communication. When you learn how to ask for validation, when you learn how to step up, when you learn how to assert yourself, when you learn how to be that person, when you learn your own self-worth, then everything changes in your life.